I think what our species has been doing for a long time is pushing language. And right now we're the manifestation of our languages. And the last biggest shift in language was digital. Digital was the ultimate Rosetta Stone for language. And there are many more extinct languages than there are current everyday languages, but there was never a universal language that humans used exclusively. So there's theory of a universal consciousness language that came before, spoken languages and isolated kind of mind-based human thought. But now we have this, infinite Rosetta Stone. And we also have the human mind that in current today's day and age is relegated to its understanding of its own languages. So what people call reality isn't actually real at all. It's not the reality that really exists. It's the experience of their own languages to themselves. They're self-reflective or reflexive languages. So it's how you see yourself in the mirror and know your name. It's how you can refer to yourself. It's why people are egotistical, et cetera. And so, I think you have two real motives inside. One is evolution and the other is economy, which is another evolution, the evolution of the economy. And right now, going back to the land and becoming, a farmer, which a lot of people feel from these experiences is potent and powerful, but it doesn't happen because there's really no money in it. And massive, big ag already has control of the space. And so the opportunity is in tech. The second piece of it is language. And when you go into the evolution of language inside your consciousness, that's what you see. So when you see all the fractals and shapes, colors, and patterns and this extraordinary geometry, you're seeing a kind of mathematics of your mind or a kind of mathematics of your consciousness. And it's very easy to now tie that back into what we would think of as technology in its current form, because it's based on actually really simplistic binary mathematics. It gets really convoluted in its minute mapping of everything. But if you blow that out, that just looks like cities. It looks like the same kind of architecture we've already dealt with, which is very simplistic geometry. You start adding this higher level geometry, you bring in the symmetries, the Fibonacci kind of sequences, you get these a little bit more advanced states of math, and lo and behold, what they produce is more advanced states of technology. And so, technology from the outside seems to be so complicated, but really it's very simplistic linguistically. And it's that simplicity that's being built upon. And the earth is neutral. So sadly, the earth has a lot more extinct species than ones that it cared about. And that's why I say that humans have to pay attention to their own relevance, not earth pay attention to humans' relevance. Like for human to stay relevant to Earth and to the universe, it has to evolve just as fast or even more so than the technology we're using, especially if that technology is heading to its own expression of consciousness and its own version of intelligence. And so you bring both of those together. And what we're looking at with an individual human being is a nexus of awareness. Like people are so egotistically driven, they don't realize that it's a nexus of awareness that they represent in a great field of life or a great field of consciousness. And so anthropomorphic, it's so human oriented. And so humans don't realize they're pushing themselves to their own linguistic mutual destruction. And that's the point of intervention at this point in time.
Yeah, I want to stick with the language thing for a second. So anyone that's, done more than a threshold kind of dose of these various psychedelics has probably seen some sort of language. There's various representations in kind of popular culture that people have done to try and share with others what they're seeing on that side, whether it's the work from like Alex and Allison Gray, which is probably like the most popular, or like Diana Slattery wrote a book called Xenolinguistics, where she kind of brought this language back from a couple dozen of trips that she went on. That language, when you see it, it feels a little bit digital. But how could it be? Because you're not plugged into anything, right? You're plugged into your own mind. What do you think that language is? Do you think that with the technology that we have today, that at some point, when we're able to marry basically the ability to measure what we're seeing in our mind, which has been proven kind of with some of the AI tools at this point, that you can, if you're visualizing, a dog riding a bicycle, the AI can pick up that is what you are visualizing in your mind, especially if it's been trained on that data. Do you think we'll get to the point where we can identify what that language is trying to tell us outside of just the feelings that you bring back from that space?
But if you look at it from the indigenous perspective, they speak Ikaro. So they have Ikaro is a language that's used to describe the multidimensional space, field, and energies found within it. So there's already existing languages for it. It's a melodic language. It has words. It has guidance and direction. It has cross communication between others. One person can Ikaro and another person can receive it. Another person can Ikaro back. The other person receives it. So there's already, I think, a precedence that's set for this kind of linguistic exchange. I think it's hard to differentiate for people when they first have these experiences, what is them versus what is other, or even if, or where is the merge? Maybe it's not other, but it's them and the other as one. And so, in that space, I think with more advanced linguistics, with more understanding, we can create a way to understand it. I think the reason why AI is so good at generating the nature of imagery is because the imagery that we're using is the imagery that we see from the eye, and we're creating mimicry. And I still go, that's not imagery. That's the imagery that you see with your eye. So being able to use the mathematics of AI to recreate what people see in the mind's eye, especially now when the mind's eye is trained on digital screens, is very easy. Like if you think about it in terms of sound, like the sound quality of vinyl is a lot better, exponentially better than the sound quality of MP3s. But people now hear MP3, they don't hear vinyl. And so they get used to that. People now see screens and get used to having their face in front of screens all the time. That's the symbolism, hertz, frequencies they get, and they're missing more and more and more of what's out there. They're not even paying attention to it. So it's just this mimicry issue with the mind that's coming up. The real next step and the real frontier and threshold is a kind of linguistics and mathematics that steps beyond that mimicry. And then that's the watershed moment. That's when, you're not just copying culture, you're now truly creating something fresh and new, never done before of Earth. Like that'll be a moment when Earth and human and tech all work together to create something. It's prophesized that it's going to happen really soon. The biggest thinkers in the space have talked about it happening, really soon, meaning like in the next decade or 2-3 decades. And there are teams working on it right now. That's really like the threshold watershed moment.
Yeah, I think we're due for a revolution in language, right? We've had the same language technology for thousands of years at this point across every major culture. Languages are very similar. That's why you can teach an AI 15 different languages and then show it another 1,500 and it can figure them all out and translate in between them really quickly, is because they're all pretty much doing the same thing, right?